All right, cinephiles, buckle up. Today, we're diving headfirst into Straw Dogs, Sam Peckinpah's infamous 1971 thriller that shocked audiences, outraged critics, and permanently changed the conversation about violence in cinema. If you think watching Straw Dogs is uncomfortable, wait until you hear what happened behind the camera. Fact 1. The title comes from ancient Chinese philosophy. The phrase straw dogs comes from the Tao Te Ching, an ancient Chinese text. Straw dogs were ceremonial figures treated with reverence during rituals, then tossed aside when no longer needed. Peckinpah saw the metaphor as perfect for his story. People respected when useful, discarded when they're not. That's exactly how David and Amy are treated in the film. At first, they're tolerated by the locals, but as tensions rise, they're cast aside and hunted. The title wasn't just chosen at random. It signaled the film's bleak message about human nature and how easily civility crumbles under pressure. Fact 2. Dustin Hoffman almost didn't take the role. Dustin Hoffman was hesitant about joining the film. At the time, he was the intellectual star of Hollywood, known for The Graduate and Midnight Cowboy. Playing a violent, controversial role in Straw Dogs seemed like a bad career move. He reportedly disliked the script's brutality, but after being persuaded with a better paycheck and Peckinpah's pitch, he agreed. Ironically, Hoffman's reluctance worked perfectly. His real discomfort mirrored David's own unease, a man desperately trying to avoid conflict until he's forced into violence. That tension between Hoffman's real-life doubts and the character's breakdown helped make his performance unforgettable. Fact 3. Susan George was nearly replaced. Susan George wasn't Peckinpah's first choice for Amy. Actresses like Jacqueline Bisset and Helen Mirren were considered, but Peckinpah wanted someone younger and more volatile. George was only 20 at the time, and Hoffman thought she looked too young, almost Lolita-like. But Peckinpah leaned into that discomfort, using it to fuel the uneasy marriage dynamic between David and Amy. George admitted later that she was intimidated on set, but her vulnerability and unpredictability brought Amy to life in a way no one else could. Her casting ended up shaping the entire tone of the movie, making it one of the most unsettling aspects of the story. Fact 4. Peckinpah forced Hoffman and George to live together. To create real tension between his two leads, Peckinpah ordered Hoffman and George to live together before filming began. No crew, no cameras, just two actors sharing a house. He wanted them to feel the friction and awkwardness of a mismatched couple. And it worked. By the time cameras rolled, their relationship felt raw, filled with little irritations and unspoken resentment. Scenes like the chess game and their sarcastic exchanges don't just feel acted, they feel lived in. Peckinpah blurred the line between performance and reality, and that experiment gave the film's marriage its painfully authentic edge. Fact 5. A dislocated shoulder became part of the movie. T.P. McKenna, who played Major Scott, showed up to the set with a dislocated shoulder. Instead of delaying production, Peckinpah simply worked it into the story. That's why McKenna's character wears a sling throughout the film. It wasn't a creative choice, it was necessity. Strangely, it fit perfectly with the movie's themes. In a story filled with broken bodies and fragile psyches, having a character visibly injured added another layer of realism. McKenna didn't have to act like he was in pain. He really was, and it gave his performance an authenticity that can't be faked. Fact 6. The movie was banned in Britain for decades. Straw Dogs became infamous for censorship battles. The British Board of Film Classification refused to release the uncut version because of the disturbing rape scene. For years, heavily edited VHS tapes circulated, or the film was banned outright. It wasn't until 2002, more than 30 years later, that audiences in the UK could finally see the full, uncut version. By then, the film had developed a notorious reputation as one of the most shocking thrillers ever made, and the censorship only made people more curious to track it down. Fact 7. Peckinpah created chaos on set. Sam Peckinpah was already notorious for his behavior, but on Straw Dogs, he pushed it to the extreme. He drank heavily, shouted at cast and crew, and even threw knives into walls between takes. Many believe he did it deliberately to create a tense, dangerous atmosphere that would spill over into the performances. Watching the final siege, when emotions boil over and everyone looks on edge, you can feel that chaos bleeding through. Peckinpah wasn't just filming a violent breakdown, he was recreating it on set, forcing everyone to live inside the same hysteria as the characters. Fact 8. The cat scene still shocks audiences. One of the film's most infamous moments comes early, when Amy finds their cat strangled in the closet. It's cruel, sudden, and still makes audiences squirm. But there's also a strange background detail. a water stain that seems to spread across the wall during the scene. Fans argue over whether Peckinpah left it as symbolism for corruption seeping into their home or whether it was simply a continuity mistake. Either way, it adds an eerie atmosphere to an already disturbing moment, making it one of the film's most memorable and unsettling scenes.
Fact 9. Susan George's rape scene caused lasting trauma. The most infamous part of Straw Dogs is the controversial rape scene, and for Susan George, filming it was emotionally scarring. George was only 20 years old, inexperienced, and intimidated by Peckinpah's aggressive directing style. The shoot dragged on for days, with Peckinpah pressuring her to keep repeating the scene to capture every angle. George later admitted in interviews that she struggled with the psychological toll long after filming ended, saying the experience blurred the lines between performance and personal trauma. The scene became a focal point for debates about whether Peckinpah was making a statement about violence or exploiting his actress. Either way, George's raw, shaken performance was very real, a chilling example of art coming at a disturbing personal cost.
Fact 10. Jerry Fielding's score was Oscar nominated. Music plays a huge role in the film's unsettling mood. Composer Jerry Fielding created a score that was spare, tense, and deeply unsettling. It heightened the unease in quiet moments and amplified the chaos in the violent ones. The score was so powerful that it earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Dramatic Score in 1971. Fielding went on to work with Peckinpah on other projects, but Straw Dogs remains one of his most iconic pieces of work. Music that doesn't just accompany the film, but helps create its oppressive atmosphere.
Fact 11. Sam Peckinpah was nearly fired during production. Believe it or not, the studio almost fired Sam Peckinpah while Straw Dogs was being made. His erratic behavior, heavy drinking, and clashes with producers worried the backers that the movie would spiral out of control. Hoffman himself reportedly grew frustrated with Peckinpah's unpredictable directing style. But Peckinpah, for all his chaos, managed to keep the production on schedule and under budget, something few expected from him. That gave him just enough leverage to finish the movie his way. The result was a film that felt unpolished, raw, and dangerous, but also uniquely his. The threat of being fired only added to the volatility of the set, and that edge bled directly into the finished product.
Fact 12. The home defense traps inspired Home Alone. Believe it or not, the final act of Straw Dogs has been compared to Home Alone. David Sumner's improvised defenses, boiling oil, bear traps, and handmade weapons resemble the traps set by Macaulay Culkin's Kevin McAllister years later. Of course, one version ends in slapstick laughs, the other in blood and brutality. Critics have joked that Home Alone is just Straw Dogs reimagined for kids. It's a strange comparison, but it shows how Peckinpah's violent survival tale seeped into pop culture in the most unexpected ways. Fact 13. Peckinpah read Evolutionary Psychology for inspiration. Peckinpah didn't just want to make a violent thriller. He was influenced by the writings of Robert Ardrey, who argued in books like The Territorial Imperative that violence and territorial defense are part of human nature. Peckinpah wove those ideas into the film, shaping David's transformation from a mild-mannered intellectual into a brutal defender of his home. It made Straw Dogs feel more like an experiment in human behavior than just a crime story. Peckinpah wanted audiences to ask, when pushed to the edge, are we all capable of violence? Fact 14. Critics called it brilliant and fascist. When Straw Dogs premiered, it divided critics like few films before it. Pauline Kael praised it as a powerful exploration of masculinity and survival. Roger Ebert condemned it as morally bankrupt and misogynistic. Some critics even labeled it fascist, accusing it of glorifying violence. Others defended it as a brutally honest look at human nature. The split reactions helped cement its reputation, a film that wasn't just watched, but argued about, debated, and dissected for decades to come. Fact 15. Hoffman looked small on purpose. Peckinpah deliberately framed Hoffman to look smaller than the villagers. In early scenes, wide shots often dwarf him, making him appear weak and out of place. But by the final act, the angles shift. Suddenly, Hoffman dominates the frame, larger and more commanding, as David fully embraces violence to defend his home. It's a subtle visual trick, but one that mirrors his transformation perfectly, from timid outsider to brutal protector. Fact 16. The shotgun barrel creates a creepy illusion. In the climax, there's a moment where David's shotgun points directly toward the camera. For just a split second, The way it's framed makes the barrel look like a face, 2 eyes, and a mouth. Fans debate whether this was intentional, but it gives the impression that the gun itself has become a character, the embodiment of violence in the story. It's a haunting image, as if the weapon is staring back at the audience, daring them to look away. Fact 17. Peckinpah borrowed from his upbringing. Although Peckinpah cultivated a cowboy image, he actually came from a wealthy Fresno family, but he grew up surrounded by stories of the Wild West, where survival meant violence. He poured those influences into Straw Dogs, turning rural England into its own kind of frontier, a place where civility collapses and might makes right. For Peckinpah, the village wasn't about England at all. It was about universal human behavior, showing that no matter the setting, people revert to primal instincts when threatened. Fact 18. Deleted characters vanished from the script. Early drafts of the script included Tom Hedden's wife and children, with actress June Brown cast as his wife. But Peckinpah cut them out entirely, tightening the focus on David, Amy, and the mob of men outside their home. Without the family subplot, the film becomes more claustrophobic, trapping the audience inside the siege with no escape and no outside perspective. It's just one house, one couple, and one violent mob. An isolated battle that feels inescapable. Fact 19. The movie made money despite the scandal. With a budget of just over $2 million, Straw Dogs grossed around $8 million worldwide. Not a massive blockbuster, but enough to be profitable. The controversy around the film actually helped at the box office, with audiences curious to see the movie everyone was talking about. For Peckinpah, the profits proved his point, that audiences would come even for a film as disturbing and divisive as this. In a way, the scandal wasn't a setback. It was part of the film's success. Fact 20. Peckinpah's chaos became its legacy. In the end, Straw Dogs is remembered as much for the chaos behind the camera as for what appeared on screen. Peckinpah's volatility, the censorship battles, the critical wars, all of it combined to make the film infamous. Was it exploitation? Was it genius? Audiences still can't agree. But 50 years later, the film hasn't faded away. Maybe that's the strangest fact of all, that it continues to provoke, disturb, and demand conversation long after its release. And there you have it. 20 weird, wild, and disturbing facts about Straw Dogs. From its Taoist title to its band history, hidden Easter eggs, and Peckinpah's chaotic directing style, this movie remains one of the most talked about thrillers of all time. If you spotted other strange details or theories while watching, drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear them. And if you enjoyed this dive into cinematic madness, make sure to like, subscribe, and stick around for more weird and disturbing movie deep dives. Until next time, keep your doors locked and your shotguns close.